Good evening, good evening. Just a quick note, we are live streaming. I don't think you started yet, Katie, right?
I just started, yeah, we are. So
We are live streaming.
no, it's all good.
That's good. So, which means basically that when we speak, we need the mic. So we want to get everything on the mic. So we'll be passing the mic around when the different parts come up. So welcome to our wonderful opportunity, yearly opportunity, just to get to know the parish a little deeper, to understand where we are on the ministry side, on the finance side, on the many ways in which we come together as a community. And there are many. I think it'll come out a little later. Kevin, I don't know if you have all the stats right in your brain ready to go, but there, you know, we what was it, last year? We did like over 200 events.
Yeah.
This past year.
About 218, yes.
218.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing.
Sure it's not too much.
And it doesn't, and it just keeps going. So that's something we're going to celebrate tonight. We're going to celebrate who we have been in the past, who we are, and celebrating with a little planning, future planning, on where we're going. So I'm going to just take a moment in prayer first and recognize that this weekend is the celebration of the Most Blessed Holy Body and Blood of Christ, as traditionally called Corpus Christi. So I'm going to do a couple excerpts from the readings to begin us in prayer. From our gospel, Jesus said to the Jewish crowds, "I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever, and the bread that I will give is my flesh for the life of the world." And St. Paul writes, "The cup of blessing that we bless, is it not a participation in the blood of Christ? The bread that we break, is it not a participation in the body of Christ? Because the loaf of bread is one, we, though many, are one body, for we all partake of the one loaf." And the beautiful images of who we are and who we can be as a parish, because we are that body of Christ. We receive the body of Christ to become the body of Christ in our world, and that's the gift that we share. So Lord, gift us with that hope, with the joy, with the possibility of being you, the body of Christ in our world. We are your hands, we are your feet, we are your mouths, we are your heart, we are your compassion. Gift us with what we need to spread that message of faith and hope in our world, a message of unity, a message of faith, a message of who we can be as we live in you as Christ. So gift us with that possibility and this hope as we pray together. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Amen. Bless our evening. Marge is going to come forward. Marge is the official chief, chairperson, yes, all of that, of our pastoral council. And again, this is an official meeting, so it is being recorded, not just on tape, but also as our secretary is going to be taking notes, and minutes will be taken and approved and all that.
So I would like to call this meeting to order. You all received copies of the minutes from the October 2021 meeting. The reason there wasn't a meeting in 2022 is because the Pastoral Council looked at the bylaws, and what we found out is that the bylaws had not been updated in quite a while, and so we went through them, and as we went through them and updated them, we realized that the annual meeting was supposed to be in June. And so we moved it from October of 2022 to June, so we're going to cover quite a lot of information. I need an approval, a motion to approve the minutes from the October 26, 2021 annual meeting.
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to introduce the members of the Pastoral Council, and if you would stand up or wave or something so that we know who you are. Rosemary Ballone, who is serving as the secretary. Sherry Moon, who has been on the council for the past 5 years and is rotating off. Peter Burnett, there he is, way in the back. Heather Milbach. Molly Tunin, David Sovey, Bob Fry, Justin Dart, Cheryl Martzel. This is her 6th year on the Pastoral Council, and she also is rotating off. And our secretary trustee, Bridget Irwin, there she is. We have 3 new members coming on, and they start July 1st, and our first meeting will be in August. Charlie Leiterman, we saw Charlie. Matt Klicka, and Sandy Murphy. Father Tom also chose 2 alternates in case somebody moves or has to leave the council, and Katrina Nelson and Katie Ahern. So I'd kind of just like to do a little overview of the parish and all the different committees and what they do. The first one is the Adult Enrichment Committee, which the liaison is Sherry Moon. Tony Pickler is the staff person. He is not here right now, so I won't make him stand up. They have basically 3 areas they work with: the town halls, the Hilltoppers, and then just all kinds of other things that they put under other enrichment opportunities, like the video series, The Chosen, Be Like Jesus, Live Like Jesus. Katie and Tony do podcasts. There was a spirituality day, a busy persons retreat during Lent, the GOD adult sessions, Advent journals, so lots and lots of things that go on with the Adult Enrichment Committee. The second committee I'd like to talk about is the Building and Grounds Committee. Peter Burnett is the liaison and the staff person. If she'd like to stand up and introduce herself.
Mary Vandenberg, I'm a staff person for Building and Grounds.
That's all you're going to say? That's Mary Vandenberg. Building and Grounds tries to present a welcoming environment for our parish family, and they do a lot of things in the background that people are not realizing. One of the things that I know Peter is one of the people who do it, they do the lawn mowing and the weeding, and those are kind of ongoing things that go on. They've been working on getting the berm on Hilltop to look a little bit nicer. This year the wooden cross that was outside was rotting and it was removed. They did some bleacher repairs. Air conditioning was added in the school building, and they are working with the site committee a little bit as they're doing a facilities review, which will include this building here. So that would be the Building and Grounds Committee. Next is the Family Life Committee. Carolyn Eckerson is the staff person who is in charge, and the parish liaison is Heather Milbach. Family Life Committee, they do enrichment opportunities for families and people of all different ages. And I'm just going to tell you a couple of the things they did this year, and it's really impressive, I think. They did a snowball, which was an adult dinner dance. They did children's goodie bags for Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Mardi Gras before Lent, for All Saints Day. They did a family bowling day. They did some treat bags for high school students during exams. They just did the Easter egg hunt at Easter. They are planning an upcoming Grandparents' Day retreat. Last December, they did a breakfast with St. Nicholas, and they do prayer shawls for all of the graduates. So that committee is very, very busy. The next one is Liturgy and Worship. The liaison to Liturgy and Worship is David Sove, and Wayne Efferson is the the staff person. Liturgy and worship does the liturgical planning, but they also do some recruiting of liturgical ministers, and so they did a weekend where they got 9 new liturgical ministers and 7 new servers. And then Nancy LeBeau, Tony Staley, Rosemary Ballone, and Steve Murphy, they did some training of these new people. They also work on, the liturgy and worship also works on environment. The Health and Wellness Committee.
Don't forget music.
What?
Don't forget music.
And music. Don't forget music. No, I won't forget music. David is one of the cantors and in the choir. And my husband is in the men's choir. How can I forget music? The Health and Wellness Committee is Molly Tunin, and Carolyn Efferson is the staff person to that. They provide education and support, not just for physical well-being, but for emotional and spiritual and social. They've done a blood drive. They do monthly checks for the sharps in the bathroom, and they do the checks of the defibrillators. They did a flu shot clinic. They provide walking in the FAC during the winter months, stretching and chair exercises that Chris Fry has worked with, which is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. The Mission Outreach Committee, the liaison is Bob Fry, and the staff person is Tony Pickler. This is another committee that does all kinds of things. They're responsible for service and advocacy and outreach. So they work with the EPH, Ecumenical Partnership for Housing. They work with the people who take trips down to Okolona. They just did some mini grants to 14 different agencies of over $40,000. They work with Whatsoever You Do. They did a clothing drive this year for the House of Hope children. No Shave November, the Rice Bowl, the Fox River Cleanup. Right now they're doing the baby bottles for Love Life and lots of other things that they are involved with. They are a very, very active committee, keeping our parishioners very, very active. The Site Advisory Committee, Kay Franz, the principal, is the staff person to that, and Justin Dart is the parish liaison. He is a member of that committee. The Site Advisory Committee is advisory, but they mostly talk about enrollment, marketing, fundraising, development. The current enrollment for the Fox, I always want to say Fox, the Father Alloway Catholic School is 284 in preschool through grade 8. We were lucky enough here at Resurrection that the 4th graders presented living stations. The Site Advisory Committee is in the middle of doing a facilities review. They are a committee of the Grace system, and so that is separate than the parish and yet intertwined with us. And I just want to announce, because I just read it in the minutes, Mrs. Stewart, who is one of the teachers in the school, just received the 2023 Herb Cole Educational Foundation Teacher Fellowship Award. So that's a big deal. And to have one of our teachers do that is really a wonderful, wonderful thing. The Stewardship Committee, Cheryl Martzel is, where is Cheryl? Is the council liaison, and Kevin DeClean is the person who is trying very hard to get that committee back up and running. It has not been running for a while. We all know prayer, service, and sharing, but they are also trying to provide a feeling of belonging in the parish. And so last year they did some presentations by parishioners at Mass, sponsored the golf outing. They just did the new stewardship prayer, although we prayed the old one at 4 o'clock Mass this weekend.
It's back again.
We're back.
Oh, good. And they are in the process right now of working on the photo directory, which is going to be absolutely wonderful. As far as sacramentally, there were 17 baptisms this year, but 51 funerals. In the First Communion program, there were 26 students, 40 parents attended the sessions, and the same for reconciliation. 26 students and 40 of their parents came with them to the preparation sessions. 33 students were confirmed. In the Generations of Disciples program, which is our faith formation for the public school students, there were 71 students and 85 adults who came, and they were working on The Chosen, which was a video series about the life of Jesus. Liturgy of the Word for Children, which is for ages 3 to 5, had about 35 people. Last year's Vacation Bible School had 50 children involved, and there are 28 res families involved with Father Alloway's school. And I know that Deacon Kevin is going to cover some of the statistics as well, but by what Katie and I found, there were 19 new parishioners and 5 weddings this year. So it's been a busy year. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Zimmer and Bill Campion from the Finance Council to do the finance report.
Thank you, Marge. As Marge mentioned, Bill Campion is our parish accountant. Just over a year now, he's been on board, and so it's been great working with him and the Finance Council as we work our way kind of out of the pandemic cycle into what hopefully is the more normal, new normal. Also with us from Finance is our Finance Council Chair, Jerry Fowler. And Jerry, you can stand up. Can you introduce the rest of the Finance Council? I know a lot of them are not here tonight, but we feel that
You got this mic?
oh, you need the mic.
We have to pass mic.
Yeah. Okay. Forgot. There's only one mic.
Thank you, Mike. So I think Frank Moon is the only other one other than myself here, but we also have Dan Morrow, who's been on our Finance Council for a number of years, Andy Arnold, who is going to take over as the Finance Council Chair for me, Joanne Zip, who has been on the council for maybe 2 or 3 years, Brett Reese, and that's it, and Mike Zimmer. And Mike is going to continue to help with transition on Finance Council. So, thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Jerry. Jerry's a new trustee.
Yeah.
Jerry is the new trustee in about 20 days. Not that I'm counting the days. No. So what I'm going to cover tonight is, since we're in June, and of course our fiscal year ends at the end of June, so we would have last fall covered our 21-22 fiscal year that ended in June of 22, and we really never did that. So we're going to go back, and it's a little bit of history, but it's good to review that year and then do a year-to-date on this year, since we're well into our current fiscal year, and we'll be wrapping that up next month. So the first, who's got the? I've got it here. Look at that. Yeah. There we go. This is the summary of revenue for the 21-22 fiscal year. I'm just going to call this 22 from now on. And you can see the left side is the actual, the middle is budget, and the right side is variance. And you can see the budget for sacrificial giving was set at our pre-run rate, pre-pandemic run rate of $1.1 million. Thinking that, well, we know we're getting back to normal in terms of that whole thing. We saw, I think you see some of these statistics in terms of mass attendance and things like that, and so we didn't quite come back to that level. We ended up at $981,000, and so that was a deficit in revenue of about $119,000. Fortunately, we had other unrestricted donations, and these are categorized as not the normal sacrificial giving cycle, but other unrestricted special donations, mostly larger in size, but just another part of our parishioner giving. And that came in at $175,000. That was budgeted at $96,000. So that made up a good portion of the revenue deficit for the year. Endowment distributions, since we use a formula of the last 3 years of average balances there, came in pretty much on budget at about $89,000. And then we also have revenue from rent from the school, from Grace, and some other miscellaneous revenue, and that was once again pretty well on budget. So from a total revenue standpoint, we were about $41,000 under budget for the year. On the expense side, you can see we were a little over budget on personnel, and went into this with Bill way back when, because this is 9 months old already. But one of the things that we found was that there was a 27 payroll year instead of, we normally pay every 2 weeks, but there happened to fall 27 payrolls. The budget had been set at 26. That was a big part of this. But we also had a lot of staff transition, as you recall. You know, the folks in the office, we had a lot of new positions as Father Tom put his team together and everything. And so the $31,000 deficit in terms of the personnel expense is, I think, pretty understandable under those circumstances. Educational subsidies is another big expense category, and that's both Grace and Notre Dame Academy. And those you can see pretty well on budget because we know those in advance as we work with both of those school systems. The diocesan assessment, once again, we know going in, so that was right on budget. And then other expenses, and this is really a lot of the sort of traditional operating expenses, including the facilities, utilities, all that kind of stuff. And the big variable we usually run into here is either some unexpected maintenance costs or weather. And weather can be snow plowing or utility costs, heat, etc. And in that particular year, $20,000 of this variance was our heat costs because natural gas went way up. And so we ended up spending a lot more on utilities. So total expenses were about $59,000 over budget. Pardon me while I turn my pages and the slides. So to summarize that year, revenue $41,000 under budget, expenses $59,000 over budget, for net operating income of about $100,000 under budget at $74,000 for the year. Now, $74,000 is our operating revenue and expenses. We do have depreciation. We don't record that from an operating standpoint. It's a non-cash expense, but there is depreciation clearly. We also have some realized gains on our endowment investment portfolios. Those were about $63,000 of that year. So that would be, if we were thinking in terms of GAAP accounting, you'd add those back. But we also have capital items that we spend money on for things, the larger maintenance items and new equipment and so on. That was $41,000 for the year. So if you look at the $74,000, and from a pure cash standpoint, we also spent another $41,000 on capital items. So fortunately, we were in a position to, with the reserves we have, to be able to do that. But we rode through that year with a deficit. So we spent some of our reserves to be able to run the parish under that transition year, with the revenue really not bouncing back to pre-pandemic levels, and yet obviously a big campus here to take care of. And so we did that, and I think clearly everyone would agree that we do need to go forward and maintain the facilities we have and maintain the programs we have, because we aren't going to be successful in growing with Kevin's work and others without maintaining the quality of what Resurrection Parish is always meant to be. Jumping to the year-to-date, this is the same format. These numbers are through April, and so this is this current year. We have a couple of flash numbers from May that Bill's prepared. I'll talk about those, but these are through April. You can see First of all, we budgeted sacrificial giving at $1 million. If you recall, it was 980 previous fiscal year. We budgeted at $1 million versus the $1.1 million from the year before. So try to be realistic, but somewhat aspirational in terms of still trying to grow that number. Through 10 months, we're at $835,000. Our 10-month budget was $850,000, so we're about $14,000 off of that number. And I think, given that we're budgeting on what we expect 800 people to do with their sacrificial giving, that's pretty good. I think that's well within the margin of error. In addition, we budgeted, for the year, $105,000 of some of those larger unrestricted gifts that we've gotten. And this year, through the 10 months, we're at $159,000. So over budget on that number. And then the other revenue items, including the grace rent, et cetera, including the golf outing that was mentioned a moment ago, and some money that we'll, because we overperformed on our bishop's appeal, we get half of that overage back from the diocese. Those things all add up to put us about $30,000 over budget on those revenue items. So overall, $95,000 positive variance on revenue, much better picture than the previous year. Obviously, we budgeted a little less revenue as well. So at the end of the day, I think it was a relatively flat year with better planning in place, given we knew what kind of what post-pandemic looked like. On the expense side, personnel expense was pretty much on budget through the 10 months, about $7,000 off. Right on down the line, all of the expenses are within, plus or minus a couple of % of what was budgeted. And so through the 10 months, we're about $14,000 over budget in expenses, and we've got 2 months to go. Probably be pretty much in that, which is really, as I said, it's a small percentage. It's a 1% variance on expenses. So it's just to summarize the fiscal year-to-date numbers. Then the far left column, through 10 months, our net operating income would be about a $19,000 net loss, and that was as opposed to a budget that was in place of $100,000. So I think are pretty pleased in that regard. When we get in, we'll talk a little bit about the capital campaign and how that works with our capital budget and some of our expenditures there, because that allows us to do a lot of those things that we had to do previous years without hitting our operating funds quite as hard. And so in addition to this $19,000 deficit you see for the year-to-date, so far this year-to-date, we've only got $15,000 of capital expenditures that have come out of our operating versus other dedicated funds, including the capital campaign. We'll summarize that in a minute. I think many of you saw this in the bulletin, but just a quick summary in terms of monetary support, another way of looking at some of the numbers we looked at in terms of sacrificial giving. I think the annual budget of $1 million, I think is well within reach with a strong June, and Bill's working on that. So we'll count on that. The other thing I think that is good on the right-hand side in terms of donors, you can see, in terms of total donors, we're actually up a little bit from last year. So there was a definite trend downward over a number of years, well before Father Tom got here, in terms of the overall size of our parish, the number of donors, and the total giving level. And I think this now we've got several years in a row of stable and then hopefully soon increasing membership and donor levels. So it's good to see that 866 number on the donor number, trying to get that back up over 1,000. the next slide talks about the endowments, and I think many of you know that we have endowments, long-term investment funds that have been gifted to the parish that are held in diocese accounts, but they're owned by us. And this goes back really, I think about 35 years plus ago, into the early 1990s, and were funded through the late 1990s capital campaign, initially in a larger way, Res 2000, if you were around for that. And then since then, have been funded on an ongoing basis from many generous gifts. Some of them are recognized on that Father William Spalding wall over there. And there are three endowment funds, and I think pretty self-explanatory. There's one for facilities, technology, there's one for outreach, and then there's one that's referred to here as Resurrection Parish Endowment, which really began as a school endowment. And a lot of that money initially was tuition assistance money that was gifted by various individuals. And so if you work your way from the top down, the Resurrection Parish Endowment right now is about 45% is scholarship money that still funds tuition for res parishioners in the Grace School system. And the balance is a number of other either restricted and unrestricted. Some things, there's money in there for staff development, people, whatever the donor intended, it was set up under that bucket. And so all of those funds, which this year will be about $48,000, I think, for this bucket, all of those funds flow into our operations. As I said, a big chunk of it will go out for that, almost half goes out for tuition assistance, but also funds many of the other programs here. Outreach was talked about, mission outreach was talked about a little bit ago. $23,000 from this endowment will come out this year. I think Bill's working on that right now. So that goes into our operations and funds, goes right back out and funding our outreach programs. And then facility technology this year will be about a $22,000 draw. So those all help fund, one way or the other, the expenses of the parish. And Bill, I think we're trying to still grow those, right? Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. Couple of comments on the 1x1 campaign. I will, first of all, just talk a bit, maybe, Father Tom has said this a few times already from the altar, but the performance of Resurrection Parish in this campaign was outstanding, and that's much due to Father Tom's efforts, Mary Vandenbush's efforts, and a lot of other members and staff people who worked on that. But our campaign goal, which was set as a multiple of our sacrificial giving, as all the parishes were, was $1.4 million, and we actually achieved $1,531,000. It's $121,000 over $131,000 over goal. The 247 pledges. And I think, once again, many of you understand this, but the Resurrection Parish gets half of that. The other half stays with those diocese initiatives that were spelled out in the campaign. And so, when all of that money comes in over the next 5 years or so, we'll have $765,000 available to Resurrection Parish for some of the things, once again, that were spelled out in our case statement. And much of that is facilities, but there's also operations and outreach and everything else that are going to be funded by that. Just quick, so that $765,000, as of right now, there are $306,000 of targeted expenditures, facilities, outreach, and other things, and I'll go through that in a minute, that are already out there. Now, those will be spent over the next 5 years, not all this year, but there are some things that have already been worked through in terms of where that money should be should be used. And as I said, much of that was spelled out in the case statement to begin with. This is how the 306 breaks down. The first of all, and you can see the 22-23, which is this current year expenditures, and then as you go across the, you can see the other community expenditures. And Vibrant Parish is really it's supporting staffing efforts to grow and enrich the parish. And I think Kevin's going to talk about all of that going on, but we really, I think, we know that we can attract more people, engage more people in a great parish like this, and so there's some money being spent to do that. Parish outreach, this is, once again, over and above the outreach efforts that we provide through our endowments and other things. There's another $10,000 a year that's been committed for the next 5 years to add to our outreach efforts. I think for a long time, much of the, I think Bishop Bob really was a strong force in this, but we always looked at anytime we were able to raise money over and above or get large gifts, we always had to tithe some of that. We wanted to give some of that back. And so this is a piece of that effort. And then there's $106,000 of capital improvements, and I'll go through the detail in a second on that. So the $106,000 breaks down like this. The two big things were doors, and the largest in terms of this campaign was the church side doors, north and south doors. I think that's as long as I've been on the Finance Council, we've talked about fixing those doors and adding power assist and so on. And so that finally got done. This $54,000 came from the campaign. There was another $16,000 that we had reserved from some dedicated money that people gave for that project. The school doors was a big safety item, and this had been going on for over a year, where it just wasn't working, wasn't locking properly. And we tried to do some repairs and bring in new parts, and it didn't work. And ultimately, we just couldn't go on without having doors that locked on the school. In this day and age, unfortunately, that's just way too important to have. And so we did get $19,000 of restricted gifts from folks specifically for that project. And so we spent $36,000 from the capital campaign to finish that project, and those are done. Both of those projects are done now. And then the basement study, there's a large basement underneath our new offices that is about 2/3 unfinished, used for storage. And we've really, since that whole project went in, have talked about how we might use that, and how it might enhance our programs here. And but it's a big project to take on, and really ultimately even to go to donors who might help us fund that, or to make a case for it as part of a capital campaign or anything. We really need to have a plan that was a little more specific and talk about, well, what would it take? And so the $10,000 was engineering and architectural dollars that were spent to really get our arms around what it would take to finish that space. That's still, I think, kind of a pending plan, because it's not committed to, so it may be under Jerry and Bill's regime that we end up getting that done. So, as I said, that's a year-to-date picture. We don't have year-end. We are in the process of putting budget together for next fiscal year, and that will look pretty much like this year. We'd like to be able to push the revenue and sacrificial giving numbers up. That follows our parish membership, and you saw the baptism confirmation number versus funeral number, and so we really have to grow to be able to put bigger numbers in our budget. So we're going to budget that flat this year, and I think that would be so it'll look a lot like this year. The one thing that we're hoping to get that would be an extra bump is Bill has been working on a pilot program with the diocese to get, if you've heard of the ERTC, it was a pandemic program that related to employer tax credits, getting some of your employee tax credits back, or tax money back, withholding money back. So ultimately, that should go through, but it will be in next fiscal year. Bill? Okay. And so that that could be another $35,000, which would really kind of get us right to equilibrium, which is where we want to be, and then we can go up from there, but we've got to get back to equilibrium. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, George?
You want me to use the,
Or you can just repeat
I
the
think you
question.
have to.
two questions, Mike. One, I'm having a hard time reconciling the numbers on the sheet that you passed out in terms of contributing units with the information you presented. This shows 696 for 2022, and you had a number like 850, I think. So that's my first question. Second question is, what percentage of the contributing units of the parish contributed to the one-on-one campaign? You said there were 247, or I think something like that. Is that the number compared to the 800?
I think there's
Take the mic. This is Kevin's.
Yeah. Yeah, part of this, we'll have Bill and Kevin work this out later. Some of these are Kevin's numbers, some of these are Bill's numbers, but what we're showing on this graph, and that was in the bulletin, is the 866 total donors. That's giving members. We have 1,200 registered families, basically. What?
1,400.
There's 1,200 envelopes.
Envelopes, right.
Envelopes, yeah, I'm sorry, 1,200 envelopes. And so if you think of the 866 as the contributing members, the 247 would be, roughly what, 30%?
25, 30%.
Yeah, right.
But how does that 800 number tie to the 696?
Yeah, you'll catch Kevin and Bill after
Okay,
the meeting,
so-
and then they can work that out, because the 866 is what finance has worked with, but I'm sure there's just a different measure that we're using in terms of
That's a
some of
big
the other.
difference.
Yeah, it is a big
That's fine.
difference, yeah. We do know the 866 is actual, because those are distinct donors in terms of our financial record, but yeah.
It depends on what the definition of a contributing unit. I think when Kevin did his numbers, the 866 is if somebody gave $1.
Yeah, the number I use is from the diocese. It's $100
Yeah.
annual, which is still pretty light.
Sure.
But
But obviously Kevin's trying to measure engagement at a different level.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions?
And how did we feel about that 25 to 30% contributing to the one-on-one? I mean, that's disappointing to me
Yeah.
as a parish member. But I don't know if maybe that's consistent with other parishes. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't have diocese numbers on
Okay.
that, so I really can't comment.
Okay.
I know that we looked at for instance, we're just looking at the bishop's appeal participation level, and actually we stack up pretty well across the diocese in terms of not just dollars, but in terms of number of givers of the larger parishes. But I don't have numbers, maybe Father you do, in terms of percentage of givers into the one-by-one campaign.
I know overall they're very happy with us.
Right, we were pretty high compared to other places, as far as annual givers and contributing to the one-by-one campaign.
So what Mary was saying is we were high in terms of the participation in the one-by-one campaign versus our total annual givers
And compared to other parishes.
compared to other parishes, yeah.
As a member of the committee, I was really disappointed that people said, no, I'm not doing that.
Frank, this goes way back, but you know, you chaired our last capital campaign, which was for this facility, and I don't know if you recall how we did on that.
Well, while you were speaking, Mike.
Use a mic.
While you were speaking, Mike, I was thinking the same thing. How did we do on the campaign of about 10 years ago? And don't quote me, and I know that you probably won't, but it seems to me, and correct me if somebody knows, but it seemed like we had 350 contributors. Now, all the contributors are listed out here. We could quick run out and count the names, count the names on the board.
I volunteer.
But I think it was about 350, but that's 10 years ago.
Okay, thank you, Frank. We'll go with your number. And as a percentage of the membership, pretty comparable then, because we had a larger number of donors at that point.
Yeah, I think it
as
was
well.
less than 50, but more than 35%, I believe. So
Right.
10 years is a long
Okay.
time.
So that's a really good question. I think we'll probably get more information from the diocese as a whole, because there are still, it's still an ongoing program in the diocese, and there are parishes that are still working on their one by one. So, anything else?
Thank you to the Finance Committee and to Mike,
Yep.
really.
You can have it.
And as a special thank you to Mike for his many, many years as trustee for us, we want to give you a thank you.
Hopefully you can go golfing with that. Now as I have you all here, I just want a couple minutes with you to get some feedback. Coming out of the financial area, one of the things that's, again, am I celebrating 36 years today?
Yeah.
36 years as a priest, and in different parishes and different situations. And I've always struggled with, and parishes have always struggled with, the regular increase of giving, sacrificial giving to the parish. And I've always been on the outlook to try to find programs to do that, and different manners and different ways to do that. And so Mary and I are working at it. It's part of the stewardship area. But Mary and I are looking at it, is there a more formal way to do that? And I ran it by the Finance Committee this past year at one of the meetings, and they all kind of went, a lot of them were regular contributors on the automatic withdrawal program. And they're like, there's never a time, especially if you're in that way, there's never a time during the year where the parish ever asks, can you give $10 more a month? Can you give 1%? You know, the cost of living goes up 2 or 3, whatever percent. We're still, and people generally are still giving as they did 10 years ago oftentimes, sometimes 50 years ago oftentimes. They're still giving, $2 or $3 to the parish on a Sunday, and thinking, well, that's all they need, I guess, because they never ask for more. And so for me, coming through the one by one, I heard a lot of comments from people saying, you gotta ask, unless you say something. And I've also heard this in other situations when we came in and the parish at that time was behind $30,000, $40,000 from that last year, and people heard about that and said, why didn't you say something? So there's not everybody's gonna like that. Not everybody's going to, but most people recognize, as you do in your own household, expenses go up. As we were saying, we're paying for utilities. We all know what it's like. Insurance, it just fluctuates, goes crazy. So we're in the middle of that. So I guess I'm hearing some head nods a little bit in that, but looking for some way, maybe something similar to the Bishop's Appeal. You get a letter saying you gave da-da-da last year. Would you be willing to give this? It's a soft sell. There's nothing that, obviously, but it's a recommendation, suggestion that maybe we can all give a little bit more. And I'm not looking to go back up to the $1.4 million revenue ask we were at it 5, 6, 7 years ago, But, can we at least stay at $1 million or maybe go up to 1.5? So that's, any strong suggestions, or think about it. If you have some good suggestions on that, let me know if you've seen something like that. There are companies out there that do that, but it's basically for a one-time ask to bring it up 20%. And it's kind of a capital campaign-ish kind of thing where it's like, can you contribute this or this? But it's not a regular, I'm looking for a regular, every year, every 2 years to do that kind of a soft ask from individual parishioners.
We used to get letters asking for our sacrificial giving, and I can't remember exactly what year they went out.
We used to get
They went
letters.
out from the parish asking for sacrificial giving, and they usually went out, I think, in spring because they planned for the budget. And in that letter was always a say, you gave such and such the amount you gave last year, and could you think about increasing it? That always came every year for years.
All right, good.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, this was probably 10 years ago, but Frank and I were on the development committee. That's back when Debbie Lesage was here. She was the business manager and kind of the liaison of our committee, but we always reviewed those pledge cards, remember? Like, we would look at them and the language, and they went out once a year. And there was a big push for people to return those, and that's what prompted, at least me personally, to revisit it regularly.
Father Tom?
Yeah, in my time, it's been a very soft pledge kind of thing. We hardly get anything back.
If I could just add, I don't mean to digress, but I think it applies to what you're speaking of as far as the number of parishioners that are participating and giving. Now, 10 years ago, I went out and did a quick count. 520 units gave to that capital campaign, which is right around just under 50%. And so that kind of is a comparison to what you're talking about now. I think percentage-wise, we're down a bit. Is basically what it is, but that was 10 years ago. The big difference, I think, in the campaign strategy, and what made me think of it was this comment here, that we wanted 100% participation at any level. And at the school, they even had penny drives for the capital campaign. Keep in mind, it was a $4.2 million campaign, and the students would come in with bags of pennies. I don't remember the count, but everybody was working on some of it.
I think another point today is that it was just for Resurrection Parish, and the one-by-one campaign was for the diocese and for Resurrection. That made a big difference in the asking.
Yes.
Yeah, so giving only to res is a little bit of a different slant than giving half to res and half to the diocese. That was kind of the comments that we got from people who were like, yeah, not giving to the diocese.
That's right. That's what you just said.
No, I was just going to add, Mary beat me to it, but the only other thing that has not been said is a huge shout out to Father Tom. I remember talking to him at the beginning of the one-by-one campaign and said, how are you ever going to have time to do this? And in talking to a lot of other pastors, they used it as a wonderful opportunity to meet parishioners. So again, I think, Father, congratulations. You did a wonderful job at the program. You met a lot of people met you, so thank you for everything you did.
Thank you. Are you a trustee now? Is that just... Thank you for your input.
You're done. I'm going to try and keep us on schedule. This year, we are lucky that we are going to be celebrating Resurrection Parish's 60 years. And I've asked Rosemary Malone to just do a little bit of an overview of what we're planning.
With a lot of other people and lots of help, we're planning many wonderful experiences for everyone. Do I just push this top on you? Katie, you know how bad I am with this stuff.
The forward arrow.
Forward arrow. This should be the top one.
Nope, no.
Side one.
Side, yes.
Ah,
There
it is. Okay. So we have many wonderful things planned, and the planning is, I have to say, we've had wonderful cooperation from so many different groups of people who say, I'll help with this, and so this is what's happening. The parish photo directory is happening right now, and Jody and Dawn and And Kevin have been working, and with the help of a lot of other people who are helping, sitting at each of the masses and making sure that people get their pictures taken or send in a picture or something. And it's not like we want everyone to say, oh, you know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have my picture in anything. We're hearing those kind of comments. But it isn't, the purpose is for us to know each other. And so we're sort of hoping that everyone will, you know, find it in their heart a time that they think, oh yeah, I can do this, it's okay. And we're not charging anything. I mean, there's no fee, there's absolutely no reason for anyone not to have their picture taken or send in a picture. That would be the wonderful thing if they just do that. Because I was looking through some of the pictures that I have from when I was in the principal in the schools, and I have in a big envelope. I said, well, then just go through your envelopes and see what you have there, what you like, and put it out. If it's 20 years ago, it's okay. You know, just get it out there. So that's one thing. Then on July 15 and 16, we're going to have our liturgy. That's going to be the big kickoff. And so at the morning, the 4 o'clock Mass and at the 8:30 Mass, we're going to have cookies with 60 on it, and there's going to be banners and swing and all kinds of silly, wonderful things happening. And then we'll go outside at 10:30 Mass and have ice cream along with the Mass, and again, a lot of fun stuff. The worship committee, Wayne and his group, and also others are working on that to make that all happen. So that's going to be great. Golf outing, help, we need golfers. We need people who would like to sponsor. So that's going to be a wonderful event as well. And then pickleball day, if you like to play pickleball, boy, that's going to be Bob Fry is working on that. It's going to be a tournament, and then in the afternoon, there's going to be a time for you to learn how to play pickleball if you don't know already. So that's going to be a fun thing on the 26th. And then the month of September, it's going to be stewardship renewal, and that probably some of Father Tom's new ideas will come forward there, and we'll be working with the finance committee. And then the banquet, the 4 o'clock Mass on that, what's the date there?
16.
Oh, 16, I'm sorry. Yeah, at the 4 o'clock Mass, we'll have a nice, beautiful liturgy to send off, and then we'll go over to the Swan Club and enjoy a good chicken dinner. And it's very reasonable, $20 for adults and $10 for children at a certain age, and then $7 for the little ones. So it's going to be a really nice event and a fun event. And we're going to have the charter members. Sherry's working to contact all the charter members and also some former priests who will be also joining us there. So go online and get yourself signed up. Oh, not ready. Katie's saying, no, not yet. Pretty soon.
You can sign up for the dinner, but yes.
Yeah, sign up for the dinner.
But the website, the 60-year website is not ready yet.
Okay,
So
that's in process.
Yes.
By July 1st, it'll be there.
Oh, by, God willing, by the end of next week.
By the end of next week. Oh, that's even better. So please, join us for all of these wonderful events. It's just going to be really a fun time for everyone. And if anyone would like to help, Jody and Dawn are always anxious to have some people help on the weekend. And certainly, I have different groups of people working in all these areas, so I'll be calling and knocking on doors and all that good stuff to get you all doing something. So it's going to be fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and all those who are working on that. I don't know how to shut this off, though.
Yeah, auction items.
Auction items?
For the golf outing.
Auction items it's going to be the weekend of the golf outing. Like we did the golf outing last year, we had the auction items around here. So that same weekend we'll have auction items. So if anybody
If you
would like
couldn't
to.
hear Mary saying that like they did last year where they had the auction items here that you could see them, and they still need people to donate auction items. Amen. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is Deacon Kevin DeClean, and he is going to do a little bit talking about Envision, and this sheet is a sheet that Kevin put together, so we'll explain it.
Good. I want to start by talking about just a little bit about the Envision strategic foresight process. So I will always remember, before I was even offered the opportunity to be part of this wonderful community, Father invited me to go through a training process.
And we learned, there were 4 of us that learned how to look beyond the horizon. And so we were given tools on how you look for signals through using social media and other ways to be able to look at how we can have conversations today that are going to change our future to be able to accomplish the goals that we want to do. So the Envision Strategic Foresight process has been very helpful for us. Just a few signals I want to share with you. And you've heard some of this, you're very aware of it. The Diocese of Green Bay shares out, so it's a chart like what you saw a little bit earlier. It shows baptism, sacraments, mass, head count. They have one that is the whole diocese level, so it's all 130 churches. This is the summary of what's going on in Northeast Wisconsin, and quite frankly, it reflects on what's going on in the United States for the Catholic Church. And what I want to really draw your attention to is mass attendance. Over the last 10 years, we're down 73%. Now again, you might think about resurrection and go, no, we're not. And you're right, we're not at resurrection. But that is the signal of what's happening in our Catholic faith really throughout the whole United States. And so while I want to celebrate the good work going on here to remain somewhat stable, we'll look at the graph in a minute, we're dropping a little bit, we've got to be very aware of what's going on around us and how we can make some change for the future. The other kind of concerning statistic that this was just released a month ago through a Pew Research Center looks out, it seems like forever, 2070, but it's telling us that based on the trends we're seeing, by the year 2070, Christianity will no longer be the majority religion in the United States. And so another signal we need to be aware of, and we need to look at what does that mean and how do we respond and work within that situation that's going on. Okay, this chart is specific to resurrection, or these charts. And so great questions. I don't have the contributing units on here. It's on the handout you have. But yeah, one of the differences between what I have and what you saw through Bill's information is this is from the diocese, and they measure at $100 a year or more. Then it's considered a contributing unit. So it's a little bit different measurement. But as you look at this for resurrection, going back 10 years, not pointed in the direction we'd like to see when you look at baptisms. Matter of fact, this is 2022, so fiscal year ending last July 1st, we had 29 baptisms. And this past year, counting the ones we just did this weekend, we're going to be at 17. So that is a signal we need to be aware of. Marriages, the 5 number you saw in the earlier report, that's actually ending last year. This year will end at 8. So that's a 60% increase. It's a pretty small number, isn't it? So I've already got 5 lined up for next fiscal year. But the hope is that through the vibrant work we're doing, through the belonging, the inclusiveness, the loving all God's people, younger couples will look at us and they'll come and they'll want to be part of the community and enter back into what we've got going on. So a lot of work to do there yet, but that's where that's at. And then funerals, it's kind of hanging in at that 50-ish number a year. So a little bit in terms of some of the signals. This was a tool, we actually presented it back to the group we were with last year, but we talked about just how important it is in being a vibrant parish to be listening to our people through the councils, through those coming to Mass, and in any other ways that we can get feedback. And so what I wanted to share very quickly is for those of you that took the time to write on the colorful walls we had, we ended up getting 117 unique responses, and then some people would say, they check, hey, yes, I agree. So a number of those 117 have 5 or 6 tick marks behind them. And then we also did a survey over the past 3 weeks, and we ended up receiving back 29 paper responses to that. We have 7 online.
So we will take all of that information as part of this listening process and summarize that here in the weeks ahead. We'll be working with Parish Council, with staff, to be able to look at, how do we pick some of those important items that we're hearing from you, from the parish, the community, and then put that into action as we go forward. Some more to come on that. Oh, I do want to share this. That was pretty doom and gloom about the Catholic Church, wasn't it? I do want to share a little hope. The global hope is that the Catholic Church as a whole added 16 million people in 2020. Any guess on what continent is adding most of that? It's Africa. So it's third world countries. Are we overthinking what God has called us and what Jesus has taught us to believe? So we may be able to learn from them a little bit. Then I just want to quickly just break down the listening process. Thank you for that feedback. I'm seeing, as we continue to get some small groups going, I'm just seeing some great value in that. Some of you are involved in the book club or the Wednesday morning group, some of the other groups. Great way that we can really share our life's journey and walk together and grow together in our faith. There will be more opportunities as we go forward. I also want to mention that Resurrection is on the cusp of developing an annual faith-based future dreaming conversation called like a seminar here this fall. So Tony and I are working on that right now with Father, where we would invite pastors from other religions. Like, this isn't just a Catholic thing going on. Let's get other pastors together and look at how we can work together to create great value and to draw more people in. So that's underway, some of that planning. I want to transition also just to some vibrant parish things going on. So far this year, from January until now, we are transitioning from, and some of this was because of COVID and other reasons, but from a more staff-centric doing certain ministries to inviting our parishioners into helping. So here's some examples. The pastoral care team, kind of ending last calendar year, was mostly Susan and Father, and I was getting involved a little bit to go and meet with people. There were a few others going out. But we've since grown that team to 12, and the goal is by the end of this year to be at about 25 parishioners that are going out to meet with those that are at home and can't get here. Some are in hospitals. And so, if you know of someone or you feel a calling to get involved in that, please give me a call and let's talk about that. Baptism prep. Up until this weekend, Susan, God bless her, would meet with each couple that's going to have a child baptized. So she would train them, and then before Mass, she'd meet with them. We're going to transition that to having parishioners involved in that ministry. And so I've got 2 commitments right now. I've reached out to 5 young couples to be part of that. If that's something you might be interested as well, or you know of someone, have them get a hold of me. We'd love to grow that team. And then marriage prep. When I came on last summer, Deacon Don was really ministering to all of our couples. Again, some of it because of COVID. We couldn't be sending engaged couples out to homes. But we've since grown that to four teams right now that are helping with our prep. Matter of fact, 2 of them are here right now. So Matt and Kelly Klicka, thank you. Justin and Ashley, thank you so much. I think I told them, expect to do about 2 to 3 a year, and I think you each hit that max already. So it might be a little under planning there, but that's good news. That's going to help us take that number up where we want to go. And then just 2 other quick things. I've been working with the staff on this process called Revive Catholic Parishes. And so it's going through team building modules and how we can work together better to just deliver great value. But it really starts at the core. We have to be working together at a high level, and you're going to feel that as we just continue to look at how we're communicating and working with each other, and that's going to lead to more vibrancy. Yeah, that was kind of update on that. Anything, Father, any of the staff members or council wanted to add? Otherwise, I do want to end with a little recognition. So, I don't know, I'm always looking at building as well, you know, it's just something, I guess, being a homeowner. And it always bothered me, I'd walk by, and the windowsills here, the varnish was gone, it's starting to push on the wood, it's okay, but it's on the verge of, we don't address this in the next year, we're gonna be replacing windows at $200,000. So I ran into this guy and his wife, named Bob and Chris, and I said, hey, I heard you know how to sand and varnish and stain and all that, you know? Yeah. So this week, I mean, this picture is yesterday. I came walking in, and they sanded everything down. If you get a chance to look at it, so thank you. Thank you for being a great So, and all of you that applaud, see me after. We've got other work, polishing grass, carpet cleaning. Anyway, thank you.
They were trained in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's where this starts. All right, we're going to keep that going. We got a great training process. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Marge, back to you.
Yes, thank
There
you.
you
I want to thank the presenters, Mike and Rosemary and Deacon Kevin, and all of the parish council for all of the work they do. Are there any other questions, comments? One of the things at the last parish meeting, somebody said, we never know what you're doing. And so we have been publishing on the website our minutes once they are approved. And we have been posting, actually they're right around the corner. So you will see the minutes a month afterwards because we approve them before we post them. Any questions? Other comments? Anything else? For the good of all? All right. I'm going to ask David Sovey to come up and help me to do the closing prayer. And as Father Tom said, today is the anniversary of his ordination. And so we were going to conclude with a blessing. And instead of Father giving a blessing, we are all going to bless him. So if you would raise your hands. And
Assuming there's nothing auspicious about the fact that your anniversary is the same day as D-Day. All right, you all know the song. May God bless and keep you. May God's face shine on you. May God be kind to you and give you peace. May God bless and keep you. May God's face shine on you. May God be kind to you and give you peace.
Thank you.
I thought it was 38 years.
He's not counting those 2 years he was excommunicated.
There are cookies and coffee and water. We hope that you will stay and volunteer with Deacon Kevin. Give your feedback to Father Tom. And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.